This video is sponsored by Aura, the all-in-one security for your finances, identity, and devices. While in the minority, you brought more attention, I think, as a United States Senator than anybody in the Senate to the wellness issue and what's going on in our government. And of all days to have you on, today, the FDA, just out of nowhere, says, hey, we're going to ban red dye. Okay. Here's what concerns me. There was no new study that I'm aware of. Can't say this for certain, but I'm not aware, and no one in the news is claiming. Nothing has changed. Doesn't that send alarm bells off to you?
Not necessarily. Again, I don't know what studies exist on red dye. I've always heard that's a dangerous thing and don't eat stuff with it, whatever. I think there were red dyes before that have been banned. Never eat a red M&M. So again, I don't know the science. What I do know, Sean, is science has been completely corrupted. Eisenhower warned us about this. When the federal government funds science, it'll be corrupted. It'll produce a scientific and technological elite that'll drive public policy. When you pay for a study, you get the result you want. And when you've got somebody like Anthony Fauci for 40 years directing most of these research dollars, those dollars produce the results Anthony Fauci wanted, and you saw how corrupt he's been during COVID. But expand it. Drug companies pay for their own studies. The FDA, and this is the corruption of the process, the FDA sued on behalf of Pfizer to keep their COVID vaccine studies secret for 75 years. You don't need further proof of capture and corruption of the federal health agencies. But across the board, you had Wiley Publications. I think they shut down, 19 publications, had to retract 11,000 research papers because you couldn't reproduce results. So science has been corrupted. That's, I think, from my standpoint, the Trump administration's first task. Hopefully Bobby Kennedy gets confirmed. We have to restore integrity to science. Everybody has to have a seat at the table when you're evaluating it. So again, I want the food companies at the table to get together with the FDA scientists, together with the nutritionists, the nutrition activists. They all need to be at the table so you have a let's call it an adversarial process to evaluate science, which is not necessarily clear. It might indicate things, and you have to make judgment calls on it too. So this isn't easy. But what I do tell you is currently science is corrupted and we have to restore integrity to it.
This video is sponsored by Aura, the all-in-one security for your finances, identity, and devices. How many spam texts, emails, phone calls have you gotten lately? I know the other day I got one telling me that a package was waiting for me. I just needed to click a link. Think about that. Every time that one of these happens, someone is trying to get your data. They're trying to breach your data. But the big question that I always ask is, how do they get it in the first place? What public information is out there? Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. There's a solution. Aura will help you remove your information from data brokers, search sites, so that people can't keep selling your data, giving it to identity thieves and scammers. They have a VPN that will protect your internet connection with military-grade encryption. It also blocks scams and phishing sites for added protection. They've got 100 virtual locations so you can access global content securely and safely, whether you're on the go or at home. I've got this all now in one app for an affordable price. I'm not leaving my family or myself vulnerable to these data breaches anymore. You can go to aura.com/Spicer, Aura, AURA.com/Spicer to try it for free for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, Aura can tell you what public information is out there to protect you. So go to aura.com/Spicer, AURA.com/Spicer. I guess what I was getting at though is this is the point that you're making, I think, which is that you have this big hearing. You call in all these people. I'm watching this thing and I'm hearing them tell me all these things during the hearing that you had. And I'm watching this stuff. Like suddenly the other day, they say these plastic spatulas, we should just ban them. And I'm going, wait a second. They were okay last month. They were okay last year. Ron Johnson has a hearing. He calls out all these wellness things. Bobby Kennedy starts telling us about red dye. He starts telling us ultra-processed food, about forever chemicals. Ron Johnson has this massive hearing. All of a sudden, all this attention, it's like they tried to hide it from us. And when we started to say, wait a second, red dye is banned in Europe. Red dye is bad here. Spatula and these plastics don't make sense to have in, on a not on a Teflon pan that they could get into our food. And suddenly they're like, yeah, you're right. It is really bad for you. And I'm going, what else is the government not telling us because of this corruption that's been existing that you're talking about? It's like, I suddenly feel like, and that's why I'm saying that it wasn't necessarily another study, but it was like you and Bobby Kennedy and so many people in the movement have been saying, oh, wow, that's a big conflict. Or did you know where that study came from? And then suddenly they're quietly mainstreaming it. Like, yep, it's really bad for you.
Well, again, one of the things I said in that hearing is I marvel at how much knowledge we've accumulated over this millennia and how rapidly we're increasing our knowledge. But what we don't know vastly exceeds what we don't know. So you have to bring that humility into the process here. I don't think without a doubt. I think there are all kinds of questions. You do need to recognize, though, too, is life expectancy has increased over the decades. That's a good thing. So somehow we're surviving, all this modernity, right? But there are new things we're doing. We have all this electromagnetic frequency bombarding our bodies. People have concern about that. One of the things came out in that hearing is Europe approves ingredients for food. They approve there are 400 ingredients that are approved. We do it based on generally recognized as safe, which are there 10,000 of those. Some of those 10,000
generally recognized. That's not even scientific.
It's not. But again, we're not dropping over dead unless some of the COVID shots. I think people dropped dead, and we're not acknowledging that. So again, what I'm saying is we need an open mind. We have to restore integrity to science. I like the fact that people are wary of these things. People are talking about glyphosate. As a pre-emergent, it might be perfectly fine, but when you start spraying it as a desiccant on the food, that might be a problem. And part of the issue is we haven't even been able to ask these questions. You're not even asking the question, well, okay, we went from something like 7 injections on the childhood vaccine schedule to over 80. We're doing in one injection multiple vaccines. Could that be a problem? I do know it has not been adequately studied. I know they have not been tested against true placebos. We know that, but again, this might be censored for me even saying that. We haven't been able to ask the question. I think one of the best snippets of testimony in my event came from Dr. Chris Palmer, a psychiatrist who looks at nutrition and mental health. He said, they don't want to know the root cause of these problems because if they find out it's something they're doing in their business model, it could destroy their business model. So I understand the pressure to just bury your head in the sand, but the American public they don't want our heads collectively buried in the sand. They want to know the answer. They want to have assurance that what is being put into our bodies or being injected into our veins is safe. Now, again, there's no guarantee. Life is a risk, and science isn't perfect, and we're not going to get perfect answers. It's not necessarily black and white. But again, what we can say is science as it currently exists is corrupted. Peer review is a joke. And that has to be fixed.
Well, I will tell you, I'm excited that you're back in power as a majority because you are the guy, whether it's the budget or this stuff, that's asking the right questions. I appreciate you being with us, and I appreciate your efforts to make our country stronger and better. And thank you for everything you're doing, Senator.
Well, thanks for having me on and giving me the opportunity to delve into this in greater depth. That's what doesn't happen in general. That's what's great about these podcasts. So thank you.
I love it. Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it. Guys, amazing conversation with Ron Johnson. So much cool stuff that he shared with us. Remember, sign up at SeanSpicer.com for the free newsletter. Next week, we're live for the inauguration, plus the morning meeting every morning at 9. We got that live event. I mentioned that. All that is in the newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. It's free, although I do love the VIP members. They're always my favorites. Great panel show tomorrow, Anna Paulina Luna on Friday, and some insight into the inaugural balls and activities that no one else can give you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.